Good morning, everybody. Happy Wednesday, hump day. We're halfway through the week. Thank you for coming back and joining us here for Virtual Sprint School Day number 3. You guys are almost halfway through. Welcome. And we're going to be working through the define section of the design sprint. So some stuff we're going to do today. We have Andrew Sue on the line. He's going to be chatting with us. He is from the BC Patient Safety Quality Council. Boom. Mic drop. Thanks, Ali. We're going to be working on some journey mapping. We're going to talk to you guys about picking a target, goal setting, and also failure. So we want to know from you guys. Don't pull a Kermit and start slamming on your keys, but let us know what kind of mapping are you familiar with? What do you know about mapping? What do you use in your day-to-day? What do you like? What do you dislike? Drop us a comment in the text box, and then Ali or Shaylin or myself are gonna. Oh, we have mapping virgins, Lisa.
You came to the right spot, Lisa.
Painful mapping is what I know. Oh, Smear's used journey mapping.
Empathy mapping, Josh.
Okay, awesome. So we have some people who are a little bit familiar with journey mapping. That's great. Some empathy mapping. Ali and I are from the QI world. So Ali, what kind of maps are we really familiar with?
The dreaded value stream map.
Value stream, swim lane. We've done it all. But this is probably
Visio, PowerPoint, Visio, and all that. Oh God.
Visio's fantastic. Yeah. But today we are going to be working on. We're going to make mapping great again. Sorry, that's like the worst Donald Trump impression ever. I apologize for that. But really what we're going to be doing today is showing you guys journey mapping and how we use it with design thinking, as well as how do we take journey mapping, do it during a sprint, and how do we time box it? How do we give only 45 minutes to go from not having an idea of what the user's journey is like to really showing this really high level understanding of what it can be. But before we jump into that, I want to talk to you guys a bit about our favorites from the homework. Ali.
You know what, Josh? People have been really good putting in all their homeworks in. And one honorable mention we had to do was we found this from Kareem from Toronto. And I think Sue, one of his co-partners, wrote this nice how might we. It was really about how can we encourage frontline staff who might be resisting to QI initiative. We like this because it's a fun one. It's a complex one. Everyone deals with resistance and engagement. And its possibly could be a sprint. And honorable mention for beautiful handwriting, Kareem. I am super jealous. So just wanted to say this is great. Thank you so much.
He passed off the compliment to the writing to Sue.
Oh, okay. Man, I'm so jealous.
So we're going to introduce our guest speaker. This is Andrew Sue. He's from the BC Patient Safety and Quality Council. And he's going to be talking about human-centered design, but more specifically, he's going to be talking about mapping. So, Andrew, without further ado, I'm going to give you control, and you can go through your slides. Welcome.
Perfect. Thank you, everybody. I'm just going to move the slide along because I feel really uncomfortable seeing my face on this slide. Sorry, did I advance the slide?
You should just be able to move your mouse over the top and click on the screen.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so hi everyone. Thanks for taking the time to listen to me speak today. I wanted to chat a little bit to you guys about. Oops.
Is it not working? I can just advance your slides.
Okay, sure. Sorry, I actually lost the screen. I'm still on the call though. Okay. So I'll just talk along if that's okay, and maybe you can advance my slides for me.
I can.
Okay, perfect. So as you guys know, journey mapping is a visual model that illustrates a user's experience that occur over a duration of time. So when I think about journey mapping, I like to categorize it in a couple of ways. So I like to think of it as either a current journey map, which is based on thoughts, actions, and feelings that users are and how they're interacting with the system. And also, I also like to think of an ideal journey map. So this is more of a vision of what a system could look like. So I'll mostly be touching on a current journey map today, but I wanted to introduce the ideal map because I think it's also a useful tool when you start moving into the prototyping phase of your design sprint. So I was trying to think how to construct a journey map, and I thought the best way would be to actually walk through a step-by-step process of a recent experience that I had calling a taxi. So when I start a journey map, I like to begin it by dissecting what users are doing. So I like starting here because it for a couple of reasons. I think it's nice to build a nice rough timeline of a user's journey, and I think it also helps solidify the spine to the story that sets up the right framework for the rest of the map. So I think this is always a good departure point to start with the doing. So in this instance, I'm calling for a taxi. I'm sort of like, okay, maybe I can go grab a coffee really quickly. So I go grab one. I come back outside. The cab's not there yet. I wait a while, finish my coffee, and I'm like, okay, I don't know if they're coming or not. So I call the taxi again, and then I pace around a bit waiting. 2 taxis actually show up, and then I have to choose one to take. And so I hop into that taxi. You know, my place is a little tricky to get to, so then I end up having to help direct the driver. And then at the end, I try to pay with a credit card, and surprise, surprise, the credit card machine is broken. So then I end up having to pay with cash. So this is just a really simple scenario that I want to use to show you guys. When you start moving into your journey maps, I expect them to be a bit more complex, but this is just like a really high level way of looking at one. So next, I like to identify different stages of the journey. So I do this because it helps me identify and categorize what's happening on a high level. And also when this starts to become a bit more complex, it also helps break the journey into more digestible pieces and makes the problem a lot more approachable to face. So from there, I like to move into the thinking section. And so the thinking process here is really important because this is where users start interpreting, understanding, evaluating their experiences, and it's also where key decisions are being made. So what I like to do is I actually just like to add quotes directly that I've heard from the users themselves. And I don't think you need to put in exactly what they've said. Like sometimes I'll just you know, sum it all into one quote, but it should just really convey what those thoughts are. Oh, and I lost the screen again.
We can still hear you. Now we can't. There you are.
Are you okay? Back here?
You're back.
Okay, great.
And we're back.
So in the thinking part is, oh, like, am I able to grab this coffee? Do I have time to do that? Where should I be waiting for this taxi? Am I going to be outside, inside? Are they going to call me? And then the fact that 2 taxis showed up and I'm deciding which one I'm supposed to go with, and the stress of watching the meter run higher during your taxi ride. I think everybody's kind of seen that during their taxi cab ride. And then sort of this annoyance at the end of needing to pay with cash, and that's not what I wanted to do. So from there, I'll move into the feeling side of a journey map. So I heard someone talk about or mention that they'd like to do emotional journey mapping, and so this is where this side of it comes in. So for me, I like to do just a generic line graph, and I like doing this for a couple of reasons. You're able to sort of pinpoint low points of a user's emotional journey. just by looking at this graph. And then also, I think it's equally important to look at the positive touch points of what's currently working and seeing what those signature moments are that are working really well. And then you can actually see exactly where along the journey these emotional sort of peaks and valleys are happening. And from there, I might add a little bit of context of what's going on about what I'm feeling. So already on a high level, you can see that just by doing a journey map, you've elicited a lot of really great information just from one user alone. So once you start doing this with a few more people, you start getting a lot of really rich and valuable information. So some key emotional things that were happening for me was sort of this confusion about not knowing when the taxi was going to arrive, sort of this really awful feeling of having one of the two drivers that showed up yell at me for not, for accidentally calling two taxis, and the stressful experience of watching the meter run higher, and this annoyance at the end again with the payment experience. So from here, and this is, I'll admit, is a personal preference, is I like to jot down some of the components that users are encountering. So when I talk about components, I mean things like different touch points your users are facing, different channels that you're using, like what mediums are available to them, and what environments they're in. So I think this is helpful because this is where we start looking at how the user's experience is actually touching the system, and this is where we can actually come in and help and interfere and hopefully eliminate some of those pain points. So here it's the mobile site. So that's where I looked up to find the number of the cab company. And I'll always have my phone on me. There's a customer service rep, there's a GPS, and this credit card machine, and all of that great stuff. So from there, this really prompts, what are the really great opportunities and insights for improvement. So there's probably a whole bunch you can think of, but for me, these were like the three things that came up most prominently, and it's how passengers can better estimate taxi arrival times. How can we better coordinate communication with one another so two taxis don't end up showing up and I know which one is the right one to get into, and how passengers can better predict the cost of a taxi ride so they're not just watching, money fly out the window as they're along their journey. So just to summarize, this is my journey mapping checklist. Is what are users doing and what are their actions? And then next we have categorize them and identify them into different stages in the journey. After that, include what their thoughts are. How are they making these key decisions? And then identify emotional points. So this includes both positive and negative experiences along their journey. And from there, identify all your different components, so your touch points, your channels, your environments. And then finally, you can list all of your insights and opportunities for design. So we've done a little bit of our current journey mapping. I just wanted to talk very briefly about an ideal journey map. So in an ideal journey map, you can think of what elements need to be introduced or modified to improve that performance, and see how those can eliminate some of the pain points you encountered from your current journey map. So let's just say if Uber took a look at my journey map, how would they improve my experience using their service? So what would happen is, I would open my Uber app. Right away, I would select my location. The GPS would show exactly where the both of us were. Right up front, I'm approving the cost of the ride, so I'm not seeing that stressful meter run higher. On the app, I can also check their arrival time, so I can already estimate really quickly if I have time to grab this coffee or not. When they arrive, the app tells me who the person is, what car they're driving, what their license plate is. There's no confusion about whose car I'm supposed to get into. And then basically the rest of the ride runs smoothly. So when we look at journey mapping, you should be able to really use journey maps for three main reasons. And you should be able to identify these high value areas of improvement, and where to go. And you should be able to generate these ideas grounded from a user's journey. And you should be able to use journey maps to help prototype future potential solutions. So journey maps really help provide these actionable insights on where to go next. So did I make it under 10 minutes? Thanks, everyone.
I think you nailed
Sorry,
it.
I know it's a lot. I nailed it? Okay, perfect.
You nailed it. Yeah, especially those slides. We were getting some comments in the chat box about how good they look. You know,
okay, good.
kind of reaffirming what Ali and I said, that those slides are really sexy. We like them a lot. Yeah, it's very poignant. So Ali, take it away.
Sure. I just want to pause here for a bit and allow people to open up the mics and ask if anyone has any questions for Andrew, because just give an opportunity. Okay.
Oh, we had a question.
How many journey maps should someone do? Is that the first question?
Yeah, that was the first one that popped up. I was
All right.
Ask it, but I don't know who T36 is.
It's a robot.
That's a really great question. I think it is very project dependent. I'm going to give you that really annoying design prof answer, as many as you think there need to be. But it really depends on your project, and it really depends on the scope of your project. If you're doing something that's a really high level systems improvement, you probably want more people to get a bit more input in there and to be able to synthesize all those different opinions. If you're really scoping it a bit, at that Uber level, I think the rule of thumb for us around at where I did my MBA was around 15. So you would do the first 7, and then you'll start seeing common patterns, and then the last few 8 is basically confirming everything that you've seen in the first 7. So I would say 15 is probably a good number to go with. Yeah.
I'm gonna make us go into our breakouts now. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna split you guys up in a couple of people of 3s, and our question would be could you pop up the question, Josh? What was your biggest aha? And your partners talk to each other about that from Andrew's presentation. So you should be jumping into rooms as we speak now. And we will give you guys 5 minutes, and we'll bring you back after automatically. All right, everyone should be going into their own breakout rooms.
We've got a couple people still here, Ali.
Okay, and maybe this is our breakout room.
Yeah, maybe.
Hey, Didi.
Ali, how many breakout rooms did you make?
I made 9.
That's way too many.
Well, there are 3 in each, 2 to 3 in each.
Okay. There was nobody in my room.
Hi, Yinka. Can you hear us okay?
You just want to unmute. Can you hear us?
Hear you. Can you hear us?
Yes.
Yeah, perfect.
Okay, great. So the question was, what was the aha moment from the presentation?
Yes.
Do you want to start, or?
It's up to you. I'm just reading through my notes. I just like the how everything was laid out visually, and how that would really help the group that you're working with to connect and to work through the problem, so you can really get to the root cause.
And for me, I would say I like the idea of using a journey map to think about what could be a potential disruptor or innovation. So the fact that the example that was first shown was taxi, and I don't know if Uber did do a journey map, but if they did, that was probably how they might start to think about what are the ways by which we can improve the user experience and the process. Right. So I think it's really cool to see how that could be used to think more outside of the box and really innovatively.
Nice, nice. Didi, are you there?
I'm here.
Hi, just your volume is a bit low. Just can you make sure your mic is close to you?
Is that better?
Yeah, much better. So what was your biggest aha?
I think the same one. I was looking at the taxi and then coming up with the Uber one and going, definitely thinking outside the box and looking at the user experience and just seeing the difference. It was like, yep, big difference. So definitely an aha on that part for me.
That's awesome. What was your biggest aha for you, Josh? You're unmuted.
I know I'm muted. You know what? I think my biggest aha is I really like the emotional line, right? And identification of these high points and these low points. I think really often we go into projects, we so focus on the points that are low because we're like, okay, we need to make an improvement here. And often we miss these points of that are really, really strong within our system, and possibly, how do we leverage it so that we can bring up those low points utilizing our already high ones. That was a big aha for me.
That's awesome. That's awesome. For me, the biggest piece for me was really using that visual to identify the pain points, and we don't do that usually in our regular journey mapping. So we're getting people coming back.
Are we? That was 5 minutes already?
Yeah. Well, people. Yeah, we just gave them a warning. It's fast. 5 minutes goes fast.
5 minutes goes by so fast.
Yeah. Are you sharing your screen, Josh?
Oh, yeah, it goes away.
Yeah. Hey, everyone. Welcome back. And we are giving people about 20 more seconds to come back from their breakout rooms. What did people talk about in their own breakout rooms? Somebody want to share? I'm just going to pick on people.
I see
now.
that there's a seconds closing. Okay, I think we're getting.
This is Arshia. Samira and I were in a breakout room, and Samira was blown away by the fact that Andrew does 15 journey mappings per project. That was her aha moment, because she didn't realize to get a good set of data, you need to do multiple journey mappings. And for me, my aha moment was that, and it is sort of tied to a question, but my aha moment was that you do the current and the ideal state. Do you do it in one session, Andrew, or does it? Do you do it in separate sessions?
You might be on mute, Andrew.
We didn't lose him again, did we?
Oh, sorry. No, I unmuted. Thanks. So actually, when I do journey mapping, I don't always do them in a full session. Like, I won't always do them live. Like, it might just be I go and chat and interview a person and talk about their story, and then I'll kind of go away and then assemble a journey map. Like, and that's usually the way I prefer to do it, just because it doesn't remove you from the moment from when they're talking through their narrative. So yeah, I'll usually do an interview and talk about their story, and then usually, if there's more than one person there, as a team, we'll go away and try to assemble a journey map together based on what they've said, and then if we can have access to that user again, we'll bring them back in and be like, hey, this is how we mapped out your journey. Let's talk about if we got it right or got it wrong, and then we'll kind of just make an improvement from there.
Nice. Who else had a big aha moment when they were in the breakout rooms?
Question for Andrew. Andrew, how do you gauge people's emotions and the severity? Like, people in my breakout were Kelly and Catherine were completely blown away by the emotional line graph. Go ahead.
Yeah, and it is, like, I'll admit there's a little bit of biases there that happen when you do it, so it's always good to check back in. But usually it's the way they're talking about their narrative. If they spend like a long time speaking about one section, you're like, okay, this clearly meant a lot to them, or this part was very, very confusing from them. I think it's really through that in-person interaction where you kind of can just read someone's body language, see how long they're talking about a certain topic, and then when you follow up with questions and they keep going back to stuff, you're like, okay, this part really hurt them. So that's usually how we'll gauge it. And then again, like, it's nice to have more than one person doing the interview so that you can kind of ask other people to be like, hey, did you notice that this part seemed like a really important part to them? So yeah, it's usually just done through that in-person interaction.
Thanks.
That's awesome. And any last comments? Okay. Why don't we just move on? Again, I want to thank Andrew so much for this amazing presentation. Andrew, actually, you just gave us a really amazing overview of what journey mapping is, and he brought in from a design thinking perspective. And we're going to kind of take that journey mapping and see how we can apply it in the constraints the sprint puts in. And that's going to be kind of, we're going to be talking more about it. So let's start moving forward again. Thank you so much, Andrew. I'm going to make sure if I have the control for the screen. Okay.
It's all you.
All right. All right. So, folks, we are talking about looking at this model again that we have showed you guys. This is still day one. And day one now we're approaching the define stage. And the define stage in your, what do you call the schedule that you have, if my screen moves forward. Just making sure.
Just click on the screen again. There you go.
Okay. During your day one schedule, you've done your lightning talks, you've done your how might we's. Now you're gonna spend about 45 minutes on the journey map, and then we're gonna work into the goal settings in that. So in a journey map, basically what Andrew talked about, that is an intense process that takes, when we're talking about 15 people doing the interviews and that, we don't have time to do that in the sprint day. But some of the user research you guys can do before doing the sprint as part of the prep of the sprint. But the journey map actually within the sprint is quite simple and straightforward. As you can see, this is just an example we put on. It's basically you're mapping out the user journey in about 5 to 15 steps. On the left side, you put in the key players and the user, and then you just create arrows taking all the way to where is the end destination of where the user's ending. And in this example, for example, was the patient starting making an appointment, and the goal is to begin therapy. And you can see how simple it is. It's not supposed to be super detail oriented. It's giving you a high level kind of overview of the user's journey. And we're in the sprint in the 45 minutes, we're not going into the devil's in the detail kind of piece. We're not fussing, we're not trying to become super accurate. It's quickly walking through the key set of steps, keeping it simple, and just getting the team to see, okay, this is the big picture of the user journey. And this allows quickly to everyone get on the same page. And what happens then is it helps us see, okay, which part of this user journey is the biggest pain point? Where should we be focusing our efforts on? And that's where the team would look at the map and say, okay, we're gonna now vote on which area of the user journey, which step you think is the biggest pain point or the biggest opportunity that we need to look at during the sprint. And we do this in 45 minutes. People are sometimes surprised, like, oh my God, we not go through everything, but that's the part of the sprint where we say the journey map is really supposed to be simple and easy. Once you're done that, this is an example how we're talking about our loneliness sprint. As you guys remember, that's a case study we're following. So we created the loneliness journey map. As you can see, we start from the family physician where the patient these elders are notified about, they're going to discover about having where to go for support. And then they usually will go all the way. We're trying to get them to the goal is to reduce their loneliness. Now, when we did this mapping with the team, we realized, and we did the voting, we realized the biggest pain point was that a lot of the users did not know, or actually just had one point where they could learn about the facility that was providing this daycare program, this respite program, and that was only through posters and pamphlets. And so that everyone agreed on it. Everyone said, great, this is our biggest challenge. And as we move and work through the sprint the rest of the day, that will help us to make sure that we address that pain point. And that was just our first kind of consensus we're coming on as converging towards using this map. I want to pause there if anyone has any questions around this.
It's quiet. I'm going to jump in because this is my map. Some tricks and tips for you guys with doing these maps. It's really difficult if you're a facilitator and you're running this journey map exercise with people in the room. If you go up to the wall and you're like, okay, let's do the journey now, you got to kind of give them something. So you'll see at the top, there's these 4 kind of categories: discover, learn, use, and goal, right? So if you put those up there, it can kind of start to help push the participants of your sprint and your sprint team to start putting things down. It's like Ali mentioned, this is not meant to be perfect. This is meant to be good enough, move on, get an idea of what your user's journey is like. And then you can kind of vote down and you can see, all right, where are these points of pain or even these points of gain? What's working really, really well? Right? So there was 2 big ones that came out of this one. It was learning about it and also the use piece. Everybody didn't want to go to the long-term care center because they felt it was one step closer to death. They felt like they didn't want to go there because it wasn't where they wanted to be. And that was another piece that was a huge pain point for them.
Question, Josh, for Andrew. Andrew, how do you use the personas that you talked about in the chat box?
Oh, so sometimes when we're doing journey mapping, we'll come up with a persona to base the journey map from that persona. So have you guys done any sort of persona building already in here? So you guys are familiar. Basically, after you've interviewed a series of people, you kind of boil all the insights from all these interviews into one specific archetype. And so then you can use that one archetype to basically build a synthesis of all those experiences in one journey map as well. So that might be another way to speed the process along. If you can't happen to be able to do a journey map for 15 people right then and there, you can use your persona to build one.
That is a really good point, Andrew, because in our sprints, we have used personas as part of allowing people to center around what kind of user we're talking about. And in one sprint we used this elderly persona of a male who is lonely and has, all these other comorbidities. And those are ways of getting people united on an idea of what that user is. And this is a little bit of that pre-hand work you're doing. And like Josh was saying, is you can even have a straw dog map ready when you come during your sprint session, when you're doing the journey mapping, because that helps to let people move along and instead of starting from scratch, because we do have 45 minutes to do this. So it really helps to keep that conversation going. This is great. Why don't we move on to the next part? It's really, and Josh, do you want to jump in here and talk about the goal setting that you did?
For sure. So you guys have listened to the lightning talks in the sprint process. You've done how might we's, you've done the journey map, and you've got this fantastic problem, identified your user, what's important to them. Now we want to talk about what do we want to accomplish. So we're starting to change the mindset now. As you can see during the actual sprint process, we've got that problem piece. Now we want people to start being future focused. We want them to start thinking about the goal. And we do this really quick. So I'm going to teach you guys how to do a strategic planning session for 2 years in only 15 minutes. Trust me, it's possible. And it may seem crazy, but we ask the question of where do you want to be in 2 years? It's that simple. We ask everybody who is a sprint participant, and we get them to write this down on sticky notes. So that thing Ali and I were talking about, a lot that note and vote. This is done to start off in silence. People quickly are grabbing my favorite thing in the world, a Post-it note, and they are writing down what they want to see in 2 years. And we don't limit them. Some people say like only do 1 or 2. I say, you know, if you've got a goal and you think it's important, put it up on the wall. And 2 minutes in silence. And then what we do is we allow the group to kind of stand around this big section of sticky notes, take a look at it, and this is the vote part of the note piece. They get dots. Another part of the sprint that we talked about is really important, those little sticky dots. If you don't have any, use a giant Sharpie marker, but I always like to give dots because it's more fun. And they get to vote on the goal that they think is most important. What do they want to accomplish in that 2 years? What do they want to have their sprint develop and move towards? This is what it may look like. So it's this accumulation of what everybody thinks is really important. And I didn't have dots, so I used a lot of quotes. Or Ali, mute yourself, please. Sorry. I'm getting an echo. Thank you. So we end up with all of these goals and we vote on them and we pick the ones that people like the most. And then what we do is we synthesize that into one single goal. We write it really, really big and we put it up on the wall because as we move throughout the sprint process, we always want to be reminded of what we're building towards. We don't want to lose sight of what that 2-year goal is. So as you can see here for the elderly loneliness sprint, we had a lot of goals. Seniors feel less lonely and more valued. You know, okay. You know, community support in rural areas for seniors. Okay, but we wanted to make it a little richer. So we combined some of them. So of course, starting with the in 2 years, we want to provide community support in rural areas for seniors, empower them to remain in the environment that they know and love. That was our goal. So when we were working through the sprint, we kept that on the wall. But the goal thing is more than just keeping our eyes on the target. It also produces a ton of energy in the room. This is a really big decision. This is a decision some working groups take months to decide or years. Strategic planning, if anyone's been involved in strategic planning before, isn't a really quick process for highly bureaucratic organizations.
Come on, Josh. Come on. You're bashing us. No.
I know. But you know, you've done a goal in only 15 minutes. You've created a ton of energy in the room, and you're proving to the people that are part of your sprint who maybe were naysayers, maybe just a little bit, that they can make decisions that are good enough faster than they've ever done before. And it's a heck of a lot of fun. So like the sprint, when we say at the end of 2 days you're going to be knackered, it's because during these days, you know, you're using a lot of your energy. You're building it up and also using it. So I want you guys to think about your goal statement. And I was going to say, try to make a goal statement, a 2-year statement for your goal, but do or do not. There is no try. So I want you guys, see, Ali, I can't do these as good as you.
No, you're so good.
A 2-year goal really quickly for your personal challenge. Type it in the chat box for us. And it doesn't need to be perfect, right? Remember that design principle? It's that good enough. Get things out on the board and let's see it.
So type in your chat box, so start with in 2 years. And what do you want to achieve, your goal?
Just like the HMW, sometimes we go I2Y, in 2 years. It's super quiet. Andrew, what's goal setting like where you work?
Just keeping our head above the water. No,
I like Christine's. Christine, you want to share what your goal is?
Yeah, it was funny when I was starting this process, it all seemed really nebulous and I kept writing, you know, consider the trauma of the provider and the patients. And but when you said 2 years and I started thinking about the journey map and whose journey it is, like it's an intertwined journey for sure, but the patients are more traumatized if the providers aren't trauma informed. So one has to follow to get to the other. So ultimately it's the patient's journey around a trauma informed practice. But I do find in lots of systems and certainly at my center we're not where we should be.
I hear ya.
Thanks for sharing.
Thanks.
I'll want Lisa to jump on. We got one more. Explain your 2-year goal for us.
In what regard?
Just explain, like, what made you think of using that as your 2-year goal?
Well, I thought of using that as the 2-year goal because my problem and my how might we is centered around the challenges with system navigation and the fracturing of the system, and how there are actually lots of great programs and services out there, but people don't know about them and they don't know how to find them. And in fact, in the example that you gave in the loneliness study in the rural community about the pamphlets and the posters, like, that is a classic example of these great programs and they get canceled because nobody comes. And there's people desperate for things to do. And so I would like to see in 2 years that we are able to solve that problem.
That's amazing.
Fantastic. Thank you, Lisa. All right, so it's something as well, if you think of your 2-year goal, throw it out on Twitter. Ali and I are always active on there, right? Like we've already said, and we can talk about it with you if you'd like. So we'll get rid of Yoda now. The next thing we like to do is talk about failure. We like to get a little pessimistic, but it's in a fun way. This is how we start to get teams to really open up into how can we fail? How can we make sure we get the opposite result that we want? And we do the same thing, the note and vote. And this one, again, it helps build a little bit of energy and a little bit of fun, but it makes them start to feel more comfortable with that idea of failure and actually talking about it. So we always ask the group, how can we make sure that we get that opposite result of what we're looking for? And when we said fun, we try to throw out things that are a little bit crazy. So all of our pamphlets and our posters will be written in Greek, and then, but when we start to think about it and we do this reflection part, we ask everyone within the group, how often do you see what we've said will be a failure point happen in our projects? It's a little bit of a moment in time where it's a self-reflection that's really important. So some people will say, all right, we're going to start having subcommittee meetings. We're going to make a committee. That's some way we can ensure failure. Or we're going to make sure that all we do is posters and pamphlets. But like Lisa said, this is stuff that we see all the time. So the beauty about this, and some of you may recognize it, it's called a TRIZ. If you like liberating structures like I do, it's all in the reflection piece. It's all asking them, identify things you may do on a daily basis or within projects that
Josh,
actually contribute to failure. Yes, Ali.
Because we're in beta mode, I want to pose a question to the group, and we're going to do another breakout room right now, because I think this is a really good point that we don't talk about enough in our teams and projects. So I put in the text box is, when was the last time you talked about failure in your teams and projects? Okay, when was the last time you talked about failure in your teams and projects? So I'm going to put you guys in breakout rooms again, and we give you guys 5 minutes and come back and we will debrief. You guys should be slowly going in to your breakout rooms. Okay. I'm going to make sure all of you guys are getting in the good breakout rooms.
Ali, did you have a timer on the break rooms for people to come back? You're muted. Hold on.
I'm just going to do it now. Give them a 1-minute timer now.
Okay.
So they should be starting to come back.
Yeah.
I made the groups a bit wider this time.
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
All right, folks, welcome back. Welcome back, everyone. Okay, I am super curious to know, what did y'all talk about in your breakout rooms? John, I'm going to pick on you.
Okay, I'm picked on. I was talking about my experience of failure is that a lot of the time we fail because we don't even try. We've got a lot of inertia, people not wanting to do things that are different or adventurous just in case it doesn't work. And so we actually end up sort of having a lot of talks like you described about strategy where we don't decide to do anything. We don't even get off the ground.
Analysis, paralysis, all that.
That's exactly it.
That's it. I'm going to pick on Yinka. What did you guys talk about in your breakout rooms?
She's muted. I'm going to unmute her.
There.
There you go.
I was looking for the button. We had a really fruitful conversation with many people sharing that just in terms of the healthcare environment, that it is sometimes, from a culture perspective, it's not really something that's embraced around failure. And another point that was raised was that how, in terms of the education system, as we go through life, we're sometimes kind of shaped to view failure in a negative way. So in terms of your report card, but I think overall from the conversation, it was that we should really look to embrace and talk about and be able to create the safe spaces to look at failure as being an opportunity where we can fail fast and learn from what we're doing. And something that I really liked was one of the people in the group said in their organization, they call it bombs, and how do you embrace the bomb? And so embrace failure.
That's amazing. And you know, I love your comment about creating the space, and because that's what we want even in a sprint, by having that topic saying how might we fail, we just created a conversation about it. And that's what the whole sprint is about, is can we experiment something that may work, may not work. And that's why we always say is if your sprintable problem has to be open to outcomes, because it might work, it might not work. And by doing this, by doing sprint in 2 days, you're able to do that. And so one thing people asked was, what's a TRIZ? Josh, I put a link in it's a liberating structure, but tell them quick 30-second, what is a TRIZ?
All right, a TRIZ is actually what we just kind of talked about. We go up to a team and we say, how can we ensure failure? How to, like, I already kind of talked about it, Ali. I think I described a TRIZ without just saying what it was. It's just pushing the team to think about creating that opposite effect and then pulling them all back and being like, okay, what do we do on a daily basis? And that reflection piece.
Great.
It's super fun. We use it all the time. It doesn't have to be just used in a sprint. It's a fantastic way to take a meeting that may be really, really stuffy and people aren't addressing maybe that elephant in the room. Mm-hmm. You do a TRIZ and it gives them that space to be like, no, maybe if to ensure failure, we have to have this meeting all the time without somebody kind of calling out a meeting. So it's great.
All right, let's keep going. We're last 6 minutes left. So we want to make sure that we finish on time. So key takeaways, guys, for this session, right? Journey map in a sprint, simple. Simple, simple, simple. Keep it. It's all about the user. Map the user journey in 5 to 15 steps. Doesn't have to be a detailed one. And then use a journey map to make some decisions about what part of the journey map that you think is the biggest pain point or the opportunity. And then create goals that are ambitious. Hashtag smart goals suck. So make make it that is in 2 years we're going to do this. And last but not the least is make failure fun again. I should have done the typo.
Fun again.
Fun again.
Failure is so much fun. Sorry, the Trump thing again. Have to.
No, it's true, and that's what it is. Ultimately, talk about failure in the sprint, and also even in your regular team meetings. It's so critical. Next slide, Josh. We're going to talk about. Before I jump into Q&A, I want to just go over the activity of the week because we just have not enough time. Next slide. This week, we're going to get you guys to just try building a journey map. So don't stress about it. It doesn't have to be the perfect journey map, but take your problem and take it and make a few steps about what could that journey map look like.
And remember, we are here, right? You don't only have us on Wednesday. You're starting a journey map and you're stuck, DM us on Twitter, fire us an email, give us a shout. And like, we've done this lots, so we'd love to coach you guys through it and help you kind of explore it. Because every time people talk about mapping, they get super stressed, right? But this is all about good enough and it's not meant to be perfect.
And it is a current state map, so it's about what the current reality is.
Mm-hmm.
And in the sprint day, I'm glad someone asked that question, because when we're doing the map, it's the current state we're looking at. We're not creating the ideal state scenario.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it is. Okay. Let's just open up the mics one more time. People have an opportunity here to ask questions. What are you guys thinking?
We want to hear from you. I'm tired of Ali's voice and my voice. It's really quiet.
Did you answer Lisa's question if it's online or not?
What is online or not? Sorry, is it an online version?
I think she's talking about the workbook. Yes,
it's in the chat box. But like the journey mapping, like, do we have to like print it out and do it by hand, or is there like a way to do it? Is there an online tool to do it that way?
I would say is we are using the workbook right now. So use the workbook, print it out, and draw it out.
It's really easier when you do things like the lower fidelity, right? Like even during the actual sprints and stuff, it's all pencils and pens and paper. You could use Visio if you wanted, but that's taking it a little extreme.
Okay.
Keep it simple. Thanks for the question, Lisa. All right. Let's, for next week, we'll let you guys know what's happening. So next week we have another guest speaker coming in. His name is Lucas Artusi. He's all the way from Austin, Texas. And he's going to be talking about ideation and how we can use analogies to start inspiring and getting inspirations and ideating better solutions for our problems. And then we'll talk about comparable solutions, and we'll get into the dreaded, but also exciting sketching part. A lot of people get freaked out about sketching, but it's amazing, it's fun, and that's it. Josh?
That's it, guys. So make sure you are tagging us on Twitter when you're tweeting. Make sure to fire us an email or DM us if you have questions. That call me maybe. Hey, we didn't just meet you. This is crazy. But just fire us a shout. We'd love to stay connected. And thank you guys so much for taking another day, another hour with us. And we look forward to next week. Shout out to Andrew. Love your slides. They were gorgeous. And all of the slides in the recording will be available online, and we'll fire it to you guys.
Bye, everyone. Have a fun week.